Mention the town of Blackpool and most people conjure up images of its famous tower, miles of sand and the pleasure beach. But a new attraction is in town and is already attracting a huge number of visitors from throughout the country. The Alien and UFO exhibition offers a unique combination of truth, fact and fiction, according to its creator and owner, David Boyle, who also masterminded the official Doctor Who exhibition based in Llangollen in North Wales and owns one of the biggest model railway collections in Britain. The exhibition includes a full-scale replica of the Adamski flying saucer, plus a remarkable reenactment of the 1947 Roswell incident, complete with stunning saucer and lifelike aliens. The exhibition is aimed at attracting not just the holidaymaker, but dedicated sci-fi devotees and avid UFO enthusiasts alike. They'll surely be impressed by the intricate designs and attention to detail that encompasses the two huge floors. Their construction was personally supervised by David, as some of the country's leading special effects artists and engineers spent almost 2 years crafting each model and design to match either a specific incident or eyewitness description. Typical of that attention to detail is this scene, a reenactment of the controversial alien autopsy footage released in 1995. Take a closer look at the alien model, then film the set in black and white through an out-of-focus lens, and you'll see what we mean. The many corridors contain numerous displays and posters, while specially commissioned TV monitors continuously show relevant archive footage with narration to help visitors discover more about Area 51, the Roswell incident, Earth mysteries, life on Mars, and much more. Informative, intriguing, and at times controversial, the Alien and UFO exhibition has already received glowing praise from the vast majority of visitors who have signed the visitors' book. But why spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on an Alien and UFO exhibition in the first place? Why stage it in Blackpool and not London? And why spend every waking hour for the past couple of years putting it all together? These were just some of the questions we put to the man himself.
3 reasons. The first and foremost reason, without doubt, is that the average person comes here to holidays in Blackpool. The person that spends his life greatly involved in football or watching Coronation Street, playing bingo, the type of aptitude to come to Blackpool. These are the ordinary people, the real solid backbone of all of the civilizations and all communities. And the people of that style never have the ability, or should I say the opportunity, to look and to find the evidence of what's around. You see, on the psychic side and the channeling side and the different aspects, it's all interlinked in the paranormal. There are many books, UFO magazines and tapes available, And the people that's into this now have got quite a realm of information to dig into it, whereas the ordinary people on the street never get the opportunity, or never would even attempt to consider buying one. But to come around this exhibition here and see all of it put together in a simple ABC 1, 2, 3 way to explain how everything works, how ghosts fit into things, how life after death, reincarnation is all part of the overall picture of what we are, who we are, where we come from. And the disinformation that's been given out by some authoritative bodies has now created such a mixture with the bombardment we're all getting continuously from the TVs, the medias, the papers. I'm afraid you cannot possibly watch television for one single day without aliens, UFO, ghosts, life after death, crop circles, all of the other paranormal aspects being shown to some degree. It's as if there's a gigantic desensitization program underway. Well, to start taking away the science fiction aspect from the possibility to then look at it from a serious point of view leaves you with what we've done here. This exhibition shows it all, from one end to the other. It's all there. You can come in, you can start off with the welcome room, you can go through into the Roswell room. We've rebuilt the crash, and in the Roswell room you've got 3 stories. You've got the story as we expect it to see, the story as the information given to us by the witnesses, and then the channel stories from the actual beings that were involved in the crash via channelers and mediums. And from there you can go through UFOs, sightings, and then the most interesting parts, of course, is how it's all interlinked together to show the physical workings of the universe, how the tetrahedron pyramids, which contain the core of every single matter. You see, every single thing that exists is 4 basic things. Every subatomic particle right through is much of a muchness. It's all basically the same rebuilt, and everything contains 4 basics. And the basics are the vibration, or the energy of vibration in the core, with a north magnetic field and a south magnetic field, or a north and south pole, all neatly wrapped up within an electromagnetic field, which is the core of every subatomic particle and every part that exists. And the energy itself, or the energy of vibration, is the energy of life itself. You asked me earlier why I put this exhibition together. This exhibition is what I believe is not put together for me, it's actually done for you. To show you other worlds, other realities which I feel have been kept hidden from you. These are aspects that you can look at yourself. Here in Blackpool, it's all put together for you to see. It's not that far from any point in the UK, about 3 hours. If you're visiting the UK and you have the time, you want to expand your knowledge, you want to see how all of the subjects of paranormal work into the main questions that we all ask. Who are we? Where we come from? And what are we doing here? You'll find a sensible thesis and theory of who we are and what we are, based on all of the paranormal capabilities that seem to show. And the number of people who've already been around this exhibition, who have gone out open-mouthed and stunned, who turn around and say, well, that's happened to me, this I understand, I agree with that. The number of drawings we have and paintings from psychic artists, and who channelers have come in and said, I've seen that being, I've understand that being, I've met that being. The number of people that's involved in that, showing the other side, the physical side. The UFO side is also interlinked into the psychic side, how it all works within the mind, and how the mind itself expands on all the things. Here are all the subjects. A visit to Blackpool, have a look at this exhibition, will expand your knowledge and your consciousness to be able to understand to a greater depth the main questions of who we are, what we are, where we come from, and more important, the workings of the universe.
Over the past couple of years, UFO magazine has helped draw attention to a puzzling mystery: the apparent reactivation of a number of supposed disused military facilities reported by readers from throughout the United Kingdom. These are just a few of the many dozens of photographs sent in by readers which have helped to highlight, and in many cases pinpoint, the precise whereabouts of these underground facilities. It was the report of a flying triangle that first drew our attention to strange goings-on underground. The sighting took place here, close to one of what was a nationwide network of regional government command centres built underground during the height of the Cold War. From a distance, only the 4 air shafts and standing aerial give any indication that something unusual awaits those who drive past this remote facility. There are no signs on the front entrance to indicate who owns the fenced property, but further down the road, a supply transformer offers the only visible clue that this facility is government-owned. The sign clearly reads, Scendleby, Royal Air Force. On the other side of the entrance to Scendleby in the county of Lincolnshire is a small bungalow, one of many identical buildings dotted throughout the United Kingdom that houses a 100-foot lift shaft. These would have taken key local and regional government personnel to safety in the event of an outbreak of nuclear war here on Britain. The entire area is surrounded by a perimeter fence, but from neighbouring fields you can just make out the huge thick steel doors that guard the bunker entrance. Smaller doors are also visible. On an earlier visit we came across two ducting pipes that came from within the structure itself. This footage, taken on that previous visit, shows a curious coating of dust on nearby newly grown grass and plants. This would suggest that a ventilation system of some sort created it, and for that to happen it would mean the facility below is very much active. Within a few hundred yards of Scendleby, another underground site, this time owned by Anglia Water, caught our attention. This is supposed to be a conservation area for wildflowers, but evidence of recent excavation and cable laying could be seen close to manhole covers that lead underground. Travel further up the east coast of England, circumnavigate miles of narrow country lanes, and you come across RAF Staxton Wold. Little is known about this particular facility, except that it contains a warren of underground levels which warn against cruise missile type attacks as opposed to intercontinental ballistic missile threats. The huge and forbidding radome seen here can't be seen from the main road, and millions who visit the holiday resorts of Filey, Scarborough and Bridlington just a few miles away are probably oblivious to its presence. Travel further north up the coast towards the seaside town of Whitby, then across the bleak and remote North Yorkshire moors, you can't fail but to come across RAF Fylingdales. No longer adorned by its massive golf balls to warn against a surprise Soviet nuclear attack, instead you see a huge pyramid shape known as Pave Pause. Thousands work here, but you wouldn't know it, because most of this facility lies buried deep underground. Nick Pope, who ran the MOD's UFO desk between 1991 and 1994, once spoke to a technician here who confirmed they had tracked uncorrelated targets in space travelling at speeds in excess of 100,000 miles per hour. Travel southwest from Fylingdales towards Harrogate in North Yorkshire and one comes across RAF Menwith Hill, the biggest NSA communications base outside of the United States. This, of course, is set to become part of a new infrared anti-ballistic missile warning space network, or put another way, a new form of Star Wars defense system. Once again, the key personnel who work here operate from numerous underground facilities. Security is intense, which is one of the reasons we chose to film from a relatively safe distance. The Cold War is officially over, but just take a look at the massive manner in which RAF Menwith Hill is expanding. No one really knows what takes place there, but enough evidence has surfaced over the years which suggests that it can listen in and intercept every form of communication anywhere in the world. This is another curious facility which has attracted our interest over the past 20 years. Although it carries no signs or notices which might help identify its owner or purpose, a strange nighttime incident which occurred some 15 years ago may offer a clue. This facility lies just off the main Skipton to Colne Road. Just a few hundred yards away is Carlton Moor, scene of numerous UFO incidents reported down the years. About 15 years ago, on a very foggy night, a local farmer was knocked up in the early hours by several Americans in civilian dress, who told him they were lost and needed directions to locate a radio mast in the area. They explained they were from Menwith Hill and had to carry out urgent repairs. Quite why there are so many underground facilities dotted throughout Britain can best be explained when one considers the potential nuclear threat that dominated defence thinking throughout the Cold War. to guard against overhead reconnaissance satellites, many of these must have burrowed underground. There are, of course, other underground facilities that are deemed no longer top secret, that are claimed to be disused and no longer active, but the opposite appears to be the case. We hope to provide further examples of these in future editions of UFOs Hard Evidence. On our visit to Laughlin in the United States, we had the good fortune to meet up with Clifford Stone, a man who claims personal knowledge of how an elite unit of US Special Forces were for many years engaged in the actual recovery of extraterrestrial craft and their occupants. Skeptics maintain that such claims are concocted by imaginative minds and should be dismissed as pure science fiction. But rarely do they make the effort to fully research such allegations by seeking out and questioning the individuals responsible for making them.
Clifford, two specific areas associated with Project Moondust. One, as I understand it, the recovery of debris that you would expect to find coming in from outer orbits and such like, decaying satellites and the like, but also another side to Project Moondust as well. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Certainly. Project Moondust, by definition, is the overall field exploitation program of only two things: objects of non-U.S. origin, which would involve Soviet satellites, and of course we would want those for technical analysis to determine the capabilities of those satellites for intelligence purposes, and the other being objects of unknown origin. The objects of unknown origin is our interest of, our concern or our interest of that particular program. Now, in order to accomplish the recovery of these objects, the United States Air Force had in place what was called Operation Blue Fly Teams. These consisted of a three-man team that was prepared to go anywhere in the world to recover these said items. On more than one occasion, we have recovered objects of non-U.S. origin that was also of unknown origin. In short, the best that, once they did the field exploitation, the best they could do is come a round circle, what we call round robin, to tell us what the objects were not, leaving us to only speculate what the objects were. In more than one instance, these objects were referred to as objects of non-earthly origin. In the intelligence community, you're very careful about saying interplanetary. It's a word you don't want to use. In the intelligence community, you're very careful about using the term UFO or unidentified flying object. Unconventional aircraft or unknown aircraft. Case in point, the unit involved with these programs was formerly the 4602nd Air Intelligence Service Squadron out of Fort Belvoir, Virginia, an Army post, but it was an Air Force unit that was doing this. A highly elite, the best the Air Force had to offer within the community. What most people are not aware of is that from the conception of that unit, just several months later, after it was conceptualized and formally activated, it took over the full investigation of UFOs.
Have we got a year for this, roughly?
Yes, sir. 1953. January the 21st, I believe it was, 1953, the 4602nd came into existence. By March, April of 1953, in accordance with Change 1 to Air Force Regulation 200-52, or 200-2, it was given the operational control of the investigations. Prior to that, contrary to popular belief, Blue Book still did not have a handle on the investigations. OSI had a handle on the investigations. In conjunction with you folks during the Second World War, the British, MI6 created what was called Operation Crossbow, Dead Reckoning. What were the Germans working on that they were about to launch against cities in England? CIC was charged with the responsibility of recovering debris of so-called Foo Fighters in 1943. So, long before Kenneth Arnold saw his sighting in the state of Washington, near Mount Rainier, we were already underway investigating UFOs. Scandinavia, 1946.
Sure.
So,
now, where is all this taking us now? Presumably, you're absolutely convinced that you have the information which, without any shadow of a doubt, points to what some people would call a cover-up. But this is a modern term now. We're talking about a cover-up of documentation in the 90s, specifically referring to events albeit decades ago. How significant is that if you're going to try and convince congressional hearings and the like to take on board this whole thing? How significant are these findings?
Well, the findings are quite significant because the paperwork, I could tell you some fascinating stories of while I was in the military, but it would just be another fascinating story. People have had their lives destroyed, and we sit back, feel sorry for them because they don't have it all together. Yet these were real events, and I know they were real events. So this is never going to go ahead and break down the walls of Jericho, if you wish. But the documentation provides that there is something going on. For example, the Bollinger Memo makes it clear those cases, those UFO cases that could affect national security, were not and were never meant to be part of the Project Blue Book system. Now, what does that tell us? That tells us that somebody knew somebody else was investigating the truly good UFO cases. We find that we have Project Sign coming on board in 1948. Actually, very late, December 30th, 1947, it's signed into law, or it's signed into operation. So it's on board, it's A2 priority, it's given a secret classification. But now what do we find out? We find out that CIC, Counterintelligence Corps, has a top secret investigation collecting information on unconventional aircraft. Take the definition of unconventional aircraft as reflected in these ancient records and UFOs, and what do we come up with? A sophisticated definition of UFO, sophisticated definition of unconventional aircraft. Both are, the definition is one and the same. But here we have a system set up within CIC looking for unconventional aircraft, which includes the flying disc, and the system set up within the Air Force with 2 or 3 people to investigate the UFOs. We also have the Air Force becoming a separate entity, so now the Army's going to be out of the picture, or so we think. The Army will still have its United States Army interplanetary unit that will still conduct those investigations as part of a joint, a multi-service organization to do these investigations. But now we find that the Air Force has OSI agents that stayed with them as opposed to staying with the Army. We now have the creation of the Office of Special Investigations. Former CIC agents fill those positions. We also find out in 1952 that this organization, that these people still have the handle. They are the ones that are controlling the investigations of the UFOs, not the people at the Air Force Systems Command, per se. We find that at the creation of the 4602nd, the cream of the crop as far as the intelligence community goes, a really elite team, we find that they are given the investigations. Blue Book still exists, but you're not supposed to know about these people. So here we have this organization that's going out investigating UFOs, and we find out that this organization, while it investigates UFOs, it's working with another very sophisticated unit that's so sensitive you're not supposed to know its name, the National Security Agency. Every bit of information, particularly technical data, is not forwarded to Blue Book, it's forwarded to the National Security Agency, an agency at that time we didn't even know that existed.
That's right.
So you bring it up to December 17th, 1969. We terminate Blue Book. We terminate it and we state there are 3 basic conclusions. There are 3 conclusions that have been reached which would permit its termination. That is, 1, no UFO reported and evaluated by the United States Air Force has given any indication of being a threat to our national security. Very important conclusion. 2, no UFO reported and evaluated has given any indication of representing technological developments or principles beyond our present day of understanding. 3, no UFO reported and evaluated has given any indication of being of extraterrestrial origin. We cannot show origin in the documentation up to this point, but we can definitely show that we have had physical craft of unidentified origin overflying our cities, overflying our country, and other countries of the world as well. By virtue of these objects doing this overflight, and we cannot identify them, that represents a potential threat. Totally invalidates their first conclusion. Secondly, these objects demonstrated technological feats that we cannot replicate to this day. This again implies the existence of technological developments that we cannot replicate. We may understand the principles behind it. For example, we have theories in quantum mechanics. We have no idea how to make practical application of those principles, but apparently the intelligence behind the phenomena does. Then we have the Bollinger Memo, who says, let's do away with Blue Book, because those cases that could affect national security were never meant to be, nor are they, part of the Project Blue Book system.
Here at UFO Magazine, we're fortunate enough to get quite a lot of videotape footage sent into the office. Most of it, of course, recorded on something similar to this. Getting on in years a little bit now, but typical Sanyo 8mm camcorder. Lots of them about. If you've not got a camcorder, or quite a good way to start into the hobby, if you like, you can probably pick one of these up for a couple of £100. Get to know the machine. If you're going out filming things on a night, lights in the sky, hopefully you're going to catch something you can call a UFO on your footage. But one or two little things to remember just before you do. Somewhere on the camera, auto manual focus. Manual focus all the time. Be accustomed to the camera. Get a feel for the focus ring. They do all vary a little bit, but basically the same idea goes through model to model. You get used to it, feel the focus, so the slightest movement will make a big difference on a very dull lit night scene. Also get used to this little thing. Sport optic finder is what it's normally referred to in the instruction booklet, but you'll find probably that the eyepiece has a focusable element on it. Now that means if you wear specs like me, you can get good resolution in the viewfinder, then start worrying about the focus on the front of the camera. Another trick as well that you might find useful, if you've got the facility, some do, some don't, but if you've got control over the iris, the exposure, if you can turn that to manual, and believe it or not, close the iris down slightly on nighttime footage. Try this for once if you like, just point at the moon, you get a nice moonlit sky, and the autofocus and the auto iris on the camera will show you the big white bright disc in the sky, but you won't see any detail. Now if you can get hold of the manual iris or manual exposure control and just turn that down a couple of notches, all of a sudden you'll see that the resolution and the detail on the moon's surface comes into view, and it's just simply the camera is trying to compensate for very bright against very dark, and vice versa, very dark against very bright, and automatic systems are really a problem, especially for nighttime footage. Enough on that though. Let's hope you go out there in the next few months and come up with a piece of footage. We get all sorts sent to us, and this is very typical. The modern computer helps us look very closely at things. You can see on this monitor here, could be a balloon in the sky. The letter that came with it from Boston in Lincolnshire tells me that two F-15 Strike Eagles were in the air slightly prior to this object appearing. Now for me, I have a feeling it looks a little bit like a balloon, but we can see what's happening here. The actual manual focus could have been used. The automatic focus is hunting, trying to lock onto the scene. But with the help of the computer we've managed to zoom into a few frames, and this is what we pick out. Very reminiscent of our spheres. that have been seen over Mexico City, and as we'll see a little bit further on in this programme, over Scotland. Let's just get you a frame here where you can see the object nice and clear. There we go, coming into view now, and there it is. A silver, light, reflecting spherical object. Who knows? My own thoughts, I think it may be a wayward balloon, a helium-filled balloon, something like that. But we're told it's 300 foot up in the air, there or thereabouts. We've got a nice map and elevation to give us good clues to the altitude. As we can see, a very cloudy day. My own thoughts on this one, I do really think it's a balloon. Right now though, it's time to take a look at some of the footage received here at the office of UFO magazine. Quite a lot there is too, but sit back and enjoy some of the clips like we have over the past few months.
Among the images that have been sent to Russell over the past few years are the following sequences. On the 16th of September 1996, Jerry Anderson of UFO Monitors East Kent saw a sphere-shaped UFO almost colliding with a passing 747 aircraft overhead in broad daylight. He later managed to film the object as it travelled slowly through the vapour trail left by other commercial jets at Windshaw near Canterbury. On the 4th of August 1998, Mrs. Tyre Hancock was puzzled by this bright light over Daventry at around 11:30 p.m. Meanwhile, Margaret Crook was watching a similar bright star-like object above her home at Fleur-de-Lys, Blackwood, Gwent. Remarkably, both women filmed the self-same object at the same time. But this UFO turned out to be nothing more than the planet Jupiter. Andrew Ellis of Yorkshire UFO Info conducted a lengthy investigation with fellow researchers John Prescott from Liverpool and Neil Cotty from Burton-on-Trent after a fellow member filmed unusual activity near East Midlands Airport between 10:15 and 10:30 p.m. on the night of the 27th of April 1998. A strange object was seen changing shape and colour seconds before an aircraft appeared in the same shot. The object then appeared to slow in movement as the aircraft passed narrowly by. Strobe light emissions would indicate this was a conventional aircraft, possibly seen from some distance away. On Monday evening, the 24th of August 1998, Leeds United entertained Blackburn Rovers, a match covered by Sky Television with the help of their aerial blimp. Internally illuminated, many people living miles away believed they were witnessing a huge UFO. Among them was S. McKinley, who filmed this object several miles away at Eccleshill in Bradford, West Yorkshire. At approximately 10:30 p.m. on Sunday, the 8th of August 1998, Christopher Martin and Jonathan Browning were skywatching at Silbury Hill, Wiltshire. These images record the atmosphere of that night, one which was to lead to the appearance of a strange aerial object. Just as Christopher and Jonathan were preparing to leave the site, a black triangular-shaped object with 3 bright lights at each edge and a central red light appeared in the distance. Several other lights on both leading edges were also observed. A secondary light behind the main triangle was also seen and may have been a separate object. Both men estimated the distance at half a mile, an altitude of between 1,500 and 2,000 feet. The totally silent triangle first approached from the northwest and banked sharply before increasing speed to head off in a northeasterly direction. The object was travelling at approximately 300 miles per hour and estimated to be at least 100 foot across. At around 10:15 p.m. on Saturday the 22nd of August 1998, and at the same location, Christopher Martin and his daughter Sophie observed a black delta-shaped object with 3 bright lights at each edge and a central red light that flashed intermittently. Several other lights, some flashing on both leading edges, were also observed. Once again, a secondary light behind the main triangle was seen together with a brief flash from a leading light. During the 60-second sighting, a rumble noise was heard against a cloudless, clear night sky. Although the light formation is unusual, the odds are that these were attached to a helicopter, possibly of military origin. This remarkable sequence of daylight footage of a UFO over London was captured by teenager Brian Jessup on the 8th of December 1997. He had targeted a passing airliner when a delta-shaped object suddenly appeared above the rim of the cloud. The mystery craft then banked sharply before disappearing into the cloud itself. Here's the same sequence again. Whatever or whoever was in command of the controls of this object, they definitely didn't wish to hang around. Mr. Rod Howarth and his friend Rory, two very able UFO researchers from Burnley in Lancashire, were on Carlton Moor in North Yorkshire on the 17th of October 1997 when this mysterious light came into view and travelled noiselessly and slowly across the horizon. Hull UFO Society received this videotape from a local man who regularly watches the skies along the east coast of England while most folk are tucked up in bed. At 4:18 a.m. on the morning of the 14th of February 1997, a triangular-shaped formation of lights appeared in the distance and later appeared to hover. A short time later, a curious rectangular light formation came into view. This footage was taken on a Canon Hi8 with 40 times digital at full zoom on manual focus. There was no noise discernible. Mr. D. Campbell and his friend Trevor Sereve, together with others, spotted this bright light over Stevenage, Hertfordshire at around 3:45 a.m. on the morning of the 28th of June 1998. A few weeks later, on the 8th of July, they observed a similar object from the same location and managed to videotape it just after 4:05 in the morning. Seen through the camcorder lens and binoculars, the light gives off a myriad of colours and appeared almost barrel-shaped to observers on the ground. UFO Magazine's astronomy consultant, Andrew Pike, quickly calculated that the object seen on both dates was none other than one familiar to UFO researchers worldwide, the planet Venus. Millions of Britons holiday abroad each year, but it's rare for someone to come forward and claim they have filmed UFO activity while overseas. Stuart Wisdom from Middlesex recorded this object at 9 p.m. on the evening of the 22nd of July 1991 while staying on the holiday isle of Sola, Mallorca. The object was in full view of numerous witnesses for at least 20 minutes. The sighting prompted some interest at the time and was later officially explained away by the Spanish authorities as being nothing more than an Italian weather balloon. Peter Haddon of Deal in Kent submitted over 3 hours of alleged UFO footage which he claimed to have taken from his home throughout much of 1997. While a number of sequences left a lot to be desired, one in particular proved intriguing. Peter had positioned his camcorder in the garden on a fixed tripod and left it to record any unusual daytime aerial activity. A curious triangular-shaped object duly appeared and left behind a visible, if almost transparent, vapour trail in its wake. Watch the sequence again. Is this a trick of the light, or did Peter record something highly unusual over Kent that day? While some alleged UFO footage sent to UFO Magazine in recent years has been interesting, none has quite had the effect of jumping at us from the screen and grabbing our immediate attention. None, that is, until we received a brief 10-minute sequence of footage sent in by this man, Brian McPhee of Stirling, Scotland. An independent UFO researcher since 1989, Brian has managed to successfully record what some might label as among the most extraordinary UFO footage ever taken in the skies above Britain. these incredible images among the best ever taken of UFOs here in Britain? What form of conventional or top-secret aircraft could possibly emulate the sort of astonishing speeds and manoeuvres seen here? None that we know of. Have featured in countless television documentaries over the past couple of years, and ordinary members of the public have been afforded almost saturation coverage by other forms of media. So what do they make of it all? We took our cameras onto the streets of Leeds, Britain's third largest city, to sample public reaction.
Do you think we're the only people alive in the universe today?
Nope, not at all.
What makes you say that?
There's a vast galaxy out there and there's got to be somebody else out there looking down on us.
Yeah.
Yeah?
What do you think about UFOs?
I've never seen one, so I don't know. Whether they're or not, I'm not sure.
There's been a lot of programmes on television recently about UFOs. Have you tuned in to any and taken a serious look at it?
Not really, no. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's the way I look at it.
So if there was an announcement about ET tomorrow that said we're not alone, what would you be doing? Would you change the way that you plan your day at all?
Not really. I don't think so. I mean, curiosity would be there, and if they said he's in Leeds City Market, do you want to come and meet him, I'd probably say yes, I would. But, no.
What do you think about UFOs? Do you think it's all foolish nonsense, or do you think that some people have honestly observed some curious things?
Yeah, I think it's true. Some people might have. Because if you photograph someone that's in paper, you're not going to exactly draw it on our
Have you ever seen anything unusual in the night sky?
No, about a year ago.
What was that?
I don't know what it was. It was just like, it was faster than a plane, but we couldn't see what it was. I was on campus, so I don't know what it was.
So there others saw it as well?
Yeah, there were loads of them, but as I said, I haven't seen them for ages.
Do you ever take notice of the night sky on an evening?
Yeah, every time you see a plane go by when I was little, I used to think it was a UFO.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you watched any UFO programmes lately on the telly?
Yeah, I watch them, you know, when they're on TV when they say it could be true, I watch them all the time. I just do.
So, in your opinion, some UFO reports could be the real thing?
Yeah.
I think the Americans are holding a lot down from us, not giving us information that we need to know to carry on with day-to-day life. If they just tell us what's going on around us, what's coming towards us, then maybe we can prepare for it.
Yeah, so we do need to prepare, because I mean, we don't know what they're going to come in to do if they do come in. I mean, war, peace, whatever, we've got to be ready for something.
Do you believe in UFOs?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Is that because you've seen one, or is it because you've been convinced by television?
I think I've been convinced by television, papers, etc. Yeah.
Have you seen some of the recent programmes on UFOs?
Yeah, quite a lot, documentaries and such.
Middle of the Skies, for instance?
No, I haven't.
Channel 4?
No, when's that?
It's been and gone, I'm afraid. But you think...
Well, yeah, I think there must be something somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just too big a place to just have us.
So what do you think would be the public reaction if an announcement were made tomorrow that ET was suddenly there? Do you think the world could come to a stop, or do you think things would go on as normal?
I think things are going on normal, but people have a little bit of faith in maybe they're going to bring something good.
Do you believe in UFOs?
I do actually, yeah.
You do? And what about your family?
What do you think about them? How do you feel about them? She don't know really.
No.
She don't think right.
Have you seen recent programmes on television about
Yes,
UFOs?
I have, yeah.
What do you think to them?
I think maybe there's some truth in it. Some say that if overall I think they're interested to be honest with you.
So if somebody came to you and said that we're the only intelligent species in the entire universe, what would your answer be to that?
I don't think so.
The only ones alive in the universe.
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
to you and said that we're the only intelligent species in the entire universe, what would your answer be to that?
I don't think so.
The only ones alive in the universe.
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.